I'm talking about the people who are actually deciding to be jihadis. They're going to get up tomorrow morning, and their goal, their job is, how do I kill infidels? How do I kill Jews?
When did suicide bombing in Islam start?
What was that?
When did suicide bombing in Islam start?
This is not. We don't have to talk about the Tamil Tigers.
I'm telling you,
it's not. It's a tactic.
With the Beirut barracks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're talking about a relatively recent phenomenon.
Yeah, but bombs are a relatively recent
phenomenon. There was
the
golden age of hijacking before that. I'm not making any excuses for it. I'm trying to say that you're talking about something of such consequence. The idea that we should, if I take covert, that we should have an official policy of trying to identify people who are jihadi, whatever that means, which is very complicated.
They identify themselves, right?
Sam,
they literally moved to Syria.
I had a friend in Cambridge, Massachusetts, who you would have identified as a jihadi. And he said to me, once you go to Israel, we will never be friends again. We will never speak. I will have to hate you, blah, 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 blah. He was the one who told me about the hadith. He says, remember that this is the tree that is the tree of the Jews that will hide you when the earth cries for your blood. It's an incredible mindset. You and I are allied on that. It's a mindset that Americans have difficulty thinking through. But what you're talking about, when you talk about the decision boundary of which jihadis to kill.
Yeah, so err on the side of conservative, right? I'm just saying we have to recognize we're in a hot war.
Sam, I think this is the same problem that you're having with Trump and other things, which is you are being invited into the abyss.
You're not understanding. But wait, let me just clarify what I'm recommending here, because if you're not understanding it, the audience isn't understanding it. What I'm saying is much more conservative, at least in my view, with respect to collateral damage and the ethics of warfare, than what is likely to be happening. Certainly, what I think is likely to happen in Gaza. Right? I think we should.
You want a lot of targeted surgical stuff.
Hold on. Two things. First of all, let's let Sam finish. And the second thing is, Eric, I want to hear a positive proposition from you, because you're kind of positioning yourself in a critique place from which it's much easier to operate. So let Sam finish his point, and then I want to hear from you what you think we should do, because otherwise it's kind of asymmetrical.
Right.
So go, Sam.
So our progress morally as a civilization, especially in the West, as a global civilization, but especially in the West, has been on many fronts, but one crucial front is that we have become more and more uncomfortable in taking innocent life, however defensively, when we wage war, right? So collateral damage that phrase is a euphemism that hides just the ghastliest outcomes, where you have children orphaned and children blown up, and every permutation of that horror. And because we've become more and more transparent to ourselves in how we wage war, we are increasingly less and less capable of waging war the way we did in World War II and Vietnam. And I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing until it isn't, right? I mean, I can imagine us getting into a war where we have to finally say, fuck it. We have to roll back our moral compass to 1945, because this enemy is hiding behind so many beautiful blonde-haired little girls. All those girls are going to die. Otherwise, we all die, right? So that's conceivable to me. But I certainly hope we don't have a future like that. And so I think we should have a bias toward being more and more compassionate, more and more scrupulous, more and more aware of how intolerable it is for, in this case, completely innocent families in Gaza to have 500-pound bombs dropped on their heads, right? I mean, it's completely unacceptable. The details are unacceptable. And I don't share your view that if we just saw more of the imagery, that would help us calibrate here, because the imagery is so provocative. The imagery of a dead baby being pulled out of rubble is so provocative. It's impossible to think about what should happen in the world on the basis of that data point, right? That doesn't guide you, that just confounds you. And so I think what I'm arguing for, and again, I don't understand the practicalities of this. I mean, we need to bring in, Delta Force and the CIA and people who actually know how you do things on that front to know what's possible. But I think yes, anyone who joins a jihadist organization who's in the business of waging jihad, right? That should be a death sentence. That should be suicide, right? We should figure out how to make that within the possibilities here. We should figure out how to make that so. And I mean, so we have our friend Douglas Murray, who we both love, and who's incredibly courageous and wise on this particular front. He's walking around saying that anyone who supports Hamas, right, even just anyone who gets out on the sidewalk and stands on one of these signs, as they have in this week, supporting what happened in Israel, those people should lose their citizenship and be evicted from the UK, right? And I try to map that onto your free speech concerns in the US. How practical is that? How ethical
My
is that?
free speech concerns.
Yeah.
Well, just so you know, guys, Hamas is a proscribed terrorist organization in the UK.
Yeah.
Therefore, to express support for it is a crime.
Yeah. Okay, but like try to map that onto the American context,
Sure.
right? We've got Stanford students who are effectively those people, right? Not only are we kicking them out of Stanford, which I could sort of support. I mean, there's more to talk about there, but like, yeah, I mean, there's a certain form of cancel culture that would make some sense to me at this moment. But on Douglas's account, we should just send them to Gaza, right? Just drop them in Gaza and say, good luck. This is what you wanted. This is your worldview. Okay, when you're talking about extreme derangements of our civil society and our politics and our way of life, and boundary problems. How do we like just what constitutes support for Hamas in these last 7 days, right? On social media and on the Quad. It's an impossible problem. So you can be as judicious as you want to be. I would advocate that, but I think we have to recognize, euphemisms aside, that terrorism is not our problem. Jihadism is our problem. And it's not that we don't have other problems. North Korea is also a problem. The other totalizing dogmas are also a problem. This is a very specific problem that is not going away. It will be with us for as long as we're alive and as long as our kids are alive.
Great. So, Eric, what is your vision for how we start
My
solving
positive
this
vision so that Sam, okay, look, because you asked for it, I think in all of the appearances, I've never actually shared this publicly. But you're forcing the issue and I'm not hiding from it. It's just, if we don't do anything different, we're going to get what Hamas wanted. So the first of all, I mean, the level of disagreement is very weird because it's 100% agreement on all sorts of factual things that you and I agree on. But no, the pictures really do matter because when you pull a baby out of the rubble, the key question is that rubble due to Hamas or is that rubble due to the person who dropped the bomb, right? So we have this concept of suicide by cop. Mm-hmm. You're about to see suicide by cop or infanticide by cop or Munchausen by proxy via cop where the cop is the IDF.
Agreed.
Okay. If you want a positive vision, the baseline is Israel's going to flatten North Gaza. And there's going to be tons of death and destruction. And I would love to stop it. The right thing to have done, in my opinion, which will not be popular, which will be much more hated by Arabs than the idea of killing families through collateral damage, is very simple.
I know where you're going. I think I've read your mind. But go ahead. Yeah.
Israel has a claim on a lot of land that it controls. And the Arabs have a claim on the same land. There's two competing claims. If you take the Israeli claim, you say, look, this land is ours. But we are not pigs. And we are not so attached to this land and we are not so blind to your needs that we would not give you a portion of land that we consider to be ours because it comes from our tradition. We have a schedule. If you want to live as brothers in peace, there are arguments between brothers and families, but if you want a prosperous state, you go this many days without any loss of life due to terror, jihad, or any of these things. And we will cede this land to your future state so that they're guaranteed that there will be a Palestine, even though we consider the land to be ours. You're interested in rape? Here's how many acres we will annex You interested in murder? You interested in blowing up families? You want to take an egged bus over a cliff? Whatever it is that you're thinking about, here's the schedule of the acreage that you will lose. We will have an annexing ceremony, and we will name it after your victims. Whatever town, whatever settlement that we're going to put in that, and it'll be permanently a part of Israel. And so that way, when you do something to us where you're begging us to kill you and your children, to blow up your buildings, to bulldoze your houses, we're not going to fall for it anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony. And what we're going to see is a larger and larger and larger state of Israel as your moronic death cult continues to grind against innocent life. So rather than have a single death, you're going to have a transfer of acreage. Okay?
But
And
that
way,
entails a lot of death.
Right,
You're taking that acreage with tanks.
because
right?
every time, first of all, there's a lot of land that Israel already controls that doesn't need to be taken by a tank. You have a different situation in Gaza in particular, right? So Gaza, first of all, is not occupied, it was given. It's controlled in terms of its borders, but when you make videos showing how, oh, look, we dug up all these pipes, we figured out how to get over the fence with paragliders, et cetera, you understand now why the borders are being controlled. So yes, there's a certain amount that you have to do, but you can certainly minimize this. If suddenly a giant chunk of land disappeared from the West Bank, and that was the response, and nobody died, for example.
But how there are people on that land? I mean, how does nobody die?
Well, first of all, people have been transferred from land. Second of all, there are chunks of land, there are settlements and things that have not yet been formally annexed to Israel. What I'm trying to say, Sam, is that you're speaking to somebody who speaks only the language of violence. And the thing that I don't know how to communicate is I have a rule that I can't care about somebody else's children more than they care about their children.
They speak there's even a more important language, which is the language of religious symbols. This is where I thought you were going. It turns out telepathy isn't real, or I don't know. Because
No, actually, I was going there, but I saw what you were doing.
they care much more about buildings than about their children, right? I mean, if you really want to see the wheels come off, Israel could say, listen, return the hostages in 48 hours or we blow up the Dome of the Rock, right? And they just rig that building to explode. What do you think happens? The entire world lights up, right? I mean, like we're talking about, it's like that's Armageddon, right? Over a building, right? It's completely crazy. It's all upside down. The ethics of this are completely upside down.
You don't mean buildings, because there are plenty of apartment buildings where Hamas has, headquarters and builds rockets.
No, I'm talking about the Dome of the Rock, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but like if you're going to talk about emotional leverage, that's the point of emotional leverage. That's more than we're going to kill all your kids. That we're going to kill this one empty building, right?
Sorry, I don't know where we are exactly.
I'm just saying that is, if you're talking about, this is where I thought you were going, I mean, Israel does not have leverage saying, we're going to go back and take Gaza for ourselves, or we're going to take more of the West Bank. That's not leverage. The whole place is as big as his living room.
No, it's not true.
It's a tiny...
Sam, if you annex land to Israel, I guarantee you the world will freak out. It won't freak out as if you threatened Al-Aqsa, and I don't even want to talk about this because I don't want to get involved.
I'm not saying I recommend that. I'm saying that is how upside down the situation is. That would be the most provocative thing they could possibly do that's actually under their control.
Let's interrogate this idea of annexing land, because I think Sam's critique that I hear that I hear and agree with is that if you start annexing land, you are going to have to do it by force, which is when you're back to square one. Israel is the occupier state, flattening cities, killing babies, etc. How is that different to where we are now?
I'm trying to say that in the cycle of violence, what is sought by the architects of murder, misery, and horror is reprisal. Physical, kinetic reprisal. I'm saying deny them that.
But you're not going to deny them that. You're going to make them, the jihadis, if we accept that they exist, which of course they do, they are going to scupper that process with everything they have by committing
they
atrocities.
do, and some that you're...
And then you're going to have to annex land on which Palestinians live, in which case you're back to collateral damage.
Again, my
occupier.
claim, look, you've got a terrible situation, okay?
We all agree on that.
I'm not coming up with this as this is what to do when you have two normal foes that are in dispute over mineral resources. We know what that is. This is not that. This is